it ultimately goes to, you know, what was voted on, who voted, you know, and the way they voted, what's on future agenda items, because really the board as a whole, I mean, we're one entity. So in terms of this person saying this and that person saying that, it's really, I think our minutes has way too much stuff in it, and I'm not sure that it's beneficial.
So Lisa,
I was just going to say, I totally agree. I used to take minutes back years when I was in the medical staff office, and it was just merely the highlights of what was voted on and the very, very minimum. But the nice thing about it is that if we videotape it, people can access the
conversation.
So then
right.
it covers, they want all the nitty gritty
right.
and it's there. And I think that's just another reason why we should videotape.
Yeah.
So
you know, if they want to see the actual conversation, then they have access to it via videotape.
Do you know if that goes out before or after the minutes?
You know what, I don't, and I pulled this off just very quickly this afternoon.
If it goes out before, wouldn't it potentially have the same issue that
I would think.
I did not,
but
I'm sorry.
Basically, the minutes should be just the facts. The facts
Make
that were voted on, this is what was brought up, and this is what was voted, period. And that's how we used to take minutes.
But, you know, just keep in mind that where our minutes are, you know, years over years it has evolved. There was, you know, criticism that there was too much in our minutes. There was criticism that there was too little in our minutes. So it's a constant trying to respond to what vocal people say they want or don't want. But in the end, whether you look at a publication from another school or you go back to Robert's rules or what we have to have in minutes, we don't have to have anything of what we have in there now, other than the fact that, you know, a discussion took place, this was the result of the discussion, your votes, and that's it.
That's absolutely right. But again, that's why I think it just reinforces why it would be nice to have, because it's not that we don't want to communicate it, but we want to make sure that it's right and have the video. You know, for full backup, you know, feel free to hit the website or wherever.
Well, so if we do something like this on a different level, where you can get the full sense of really what's going on in here, not just focused at one or two people kind of thing, then maybe we can think about going to something more like that. But I think we need to have that before we limit, you know.
I'm sorry.
You have to think about, though, in order to, I'm going to piggyback off of you, you know, to get the full board on the camera. I mean, even if when I used to sit all the way in the back, I still couldn't get them. But not only just the full board, but if you've got your camera way back there, then you don't have the audio. Because, Leander, you speak very quietly, and it's often not picked up. So you have to think about not just video, but audio as well.
I agree with you wholeheartedly.
Okay, I was just going on to what she was saying with the full board on there. I'm like, you got to remember.
And truth be told, I mean, I think most people would sooner hear the board meeting than want to sit in front of their computer and watch it. I think they would want to play it so that they could hear it, but, you know, multitask.
Right, like you said,
go forward to what's critical, you know, to you. I don't know if anybody would really want to sit there and watch it, but I'm not suggesting we don't.
Well, I mean, I put them on in the background all the time, and I mean, I don't necessarily sit there watching, but I always listen to it. Yeah,
you hear what's going on.
Which comes down to, if we're going to do it, then we want to do it well and be able to figure out, can we put it up there somewhere where it's the full video and great sound? You know, it's just going to depend on
a matter of getting like 3 or
the
4
equipment
microphones, which I would think we would have.
Yeah. But you also got to remember now we're doing a screen, so you want to, if you're going to videotape, you want to be able to capture that as well.
Right. So these are all things that would need to be discussed by whoever or presented to us by whoever, or
you know. And then if you're in the back and you also happen to capture the audience, now is that an issue for the audience?
Public meeting,
It's a public meeting, I know, but you know, again, something to take into consideration. So,
and I think if we're doing student recognition, you're going to have to be careful about that as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah, but you shouldn't recognize them seriously at a public meeting if you don't want it videotaped or audio taped, because it's a public meeting. So, I mean, if you truly don't want them captured, the bottom line is that you shouldn't do it at a board meeting, at a public, at a meeting that's open to the public.
Or they have the option of not coming.
Convene the meeting.
Right. There you go.
That would be
something you could do.
Absolutely. You just do it before you convene. Right.
But I'd like to suggest in the meantime, because obviously it's going to take some time, right, is that, and we talked about it before, is if we just put the highlights or minutes, whichever, after they're approved. That'll kind of solve that issue.
So do we eliminate the highlights altogether?
I would say so.
You'd be of the opinion just to eliminate the highlights?
The problem is it's a month behind, but at least we know it's accurate. So then it would always be a month behind.
What's other people's opinion about eliminating the highlights and just going with the minutes?
I'm fine
I think
with
that's
it.
fine.
I wouldn't eliminate anything just yet, until we get an audit done.
Yeah.
I mean, I would rather delay them a month
Exactly.
than,
But then what's the real difference between the highlights and the minutes? Aren't they pretty much verbatim?
well, some
Just-
people, you know, they'll get the hard copy of the Friday packet that has the highlights in it. They don't necessarily go online to read the minutes.
Right.
And there's a blast, or just include the minutes at that point. I guess is what you're suggesting, is just put the minutes out there instead of the highlights, or?
Well,
Yeah.
have them after they're approved. That's basically my big concern is, you know, multiple times they've been put out in the packet and then we make corrections and then, you know, the public never got to see those corrections. So the
In the
timeline would
packet.
be a month.
Right, because the minutes appear on the website under, what, like administration and then
No,
board
No,
and then
under
board
the board.
agenda or something like that, where the
highlights are
highlights
there
will go
too.
in a Friday, but they'll also go in that Friday packet, and there's a zinger that comes out every 2 Fridays and says, hey, the latest Friday packet's been posted. So more people are apt to go in there. I mean, I don't know that I would eliminate anything just yet.
Is it allowable to publish the minutes unapproved as long as you disclose that they're unapproved? Because I guess, you know, the thing that I would think is to not do anything for a month feels a little odd to me. Like if I were a parent who happened to just be interested in what happened, you know, I knew that here was the agenda. Do I call Karen and say, hey, Karen, what happened? You know what I mean?
Okay.
How do I find out what
Would
kind
you
of
be
transpired?
opposed to having, and just out loud, thinking out loud, to sending out those to all the board members and we would submit it back to you, not to the group, to review it? Yes, we approve before they're published.
Highlights.
The
I
highlights.
don't know that, highlights or
Highlights,
minutes?
not
Highlights.
minutes.
The highlights, not the minutes, because
not
you.
The highlights,
do it
because the
as a
highlights
whole.
are what goes out in the Friday packet. not
Right,
the
but,
minutes.
okay, but what would
But
you,
review.
let's say that you wanted to change
It's a
something.
matter of opinion. Right?
Right.
Okay, so
If
let's say
were
that you did.
misquoted or something, or that, you know.
Right,
that's
but
not
wouldn't
how
wouldn't that have to go back before?
Through the whole group.
It's just a highlight, right? And if it's something that,
Right, but if you made a
Not that
change
you're gonna
to
quote
it,
anymore.
what's that?
I don't think we're going to quote anymore. Necessarily quote, direct quotes. I mean, the minutes are, minutes
not
and
necessarily-
highlights are supposed to be a summary of what transpired, very similar to what Gina's looking at right now.
Right, so would it be, so could somebody be, could the interpretation of what someone said be misunderstood and that's represented in there? So not a direct quote per se, but, you know, oh, in board member Mirabile X, and it's like, oh, no, that's not what I meant. And, you know, is that what we were talking about changing? That would change from one month to the next? I guess the next question is, how often does it change that this is an issue? I know, Gina, you had one, but it's like, you know, in all my years here, how often have they changed that it's an issue that we would,
Has what changed?
the highlights or the minutes itself?
I think a couple
anytime
times,
your
yeah.
minutes change, the highlights could have potentially been changed as well.
That's not my point. My point is, okay, in 12, 24, 36, 48,
Correction to the
96,
minutes.
you know, in 100 meetings I've been in now, not counting special meetings, how often have we had to make a change?
well, my past 2.5 years, quite a few. I'm going to
Okay.
say at least a half dozen.
Okay.
You know what, and I know, I
Yeah, I
felt
think
that when
so.
I used to take
Okay.
minutes as well, I felt like I never got it right. In every meeting, we were changing something that was
Okay.
written or approved.
I guess
So I
the
think it
question
happens
becomes,
all
is
the
it better to be sure that you got it right? Or,
Before you publish something,
or to say, to say nothing, right? I mean, which is the greater good?
Well, it's
Or
quality
you-
and quantity, right?
or do you say something but keep it so brief that
Are we able to determine how many people or how often those minutes are viewed online? Like, do you know what I'm saying? Like on a monthly basis?
Who opens their Friday packets?
Not
Well-
necessarily who opens the Friday packet, because people open the Friday packet, but they don't, I'm talking about like going online to
On the website.
drop-down menu.
Where we have the agendas,
Yeah, and
the
looking at them. I mean,
highlights.
like, how often does that occur? Can he pull that, John pull or Judith pull that
I
data?
don't know, but if it were 10 or more or less, what would you change?
I'm just curious to see how often, well, I'm just curious to see how often people actually go online as opposed to on the Friday